Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Welcome back to my channel. I pray that you are all in the best of health and iman. If you are new, welcome. My name is Nafisa. I make Islam and lifestyle videos. So if you're interested in that kind of content, then please don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and join our family. So it's another marriage video which I haven't made for a while, but I thought this particular subject was so necessary, especially for us young girls these days, especially for the young teenagers who are just about starting to think of, you know, the ideal marriage, if you like. So yeah, I'm going to be sharing with you guys my opinion of 6 types of guys that you should not marry as a Muslim woman. You're gonna want to see the rest of this, guys. Without further ado, let's start. So the first man that I think a Muslim woman should never ever marry is a non-Muslim man. Why? Because in Islam, as Muslim women, we are not allowed to marry except for Muslim men. Now, this is not the platform to start discussing or arguing about why all, you know, men are allowed and women aren't. This is not the place for it. You just have to know that as a Muslim, if you're willing to please Allah, that is just the law that Allah has placed there, that we as Muslim women are not allowed to marry a non-Muslim man. Now, if a man shows interest in you and he finds out that you are Muslim and he himself wants to come into Islam, that's one thing. In that case, I would say let that man himself learn and study the deen and actually come into the deen because he genuinely wants to come into the deen. And he's not just trying to become a Muslim, right, marry you and then start acting a fool. Okay, you actually want a proper Muslim husband who's going to support you in your journey to Allah and who's going to help you raise a good Muslim family. So girls, have that in mind. When you see a non-Muslim guy, no matter how good looking he is, just guard your heart, right, and just take a step back, lower your gaze and keep it moving, because you know this one, there ain't no point. Okay, any investment of emotion you put into it is gonna be a waste of time, right? So be careful on that note. Make sure you do not marry except a Muslim man. The second kind of guy that you definitely want to avoid marrying as a Muslim woman is Mr. Non-practicing. Mr. Non-practicing is the guy that gives you that line of, oh, Islam is in my heart. Islam is in your heart, but you don't pray, dude. Islam is in your heart. You've never been to the masjid before, dude. Islam is in your heart, but you eat haram and you gain money from haram and everything is haram, but you know, you have a Muslim name, so you technically are Muslim, but you don't practice anything of the deen. Girls, that is not the kind of man that you would want to be part of your life or part of your family, because sometimes it's not the love that a man has for you that makes him do the right thing. Sometimes it's the fear of Allah that he has in his heart that makes him do the right thing. Now, if this person doesn't even have enough fear in Allah to maintain or, you know, implements the most basic parts of his deen, like praying salah and, you know, fasting in Ramadan and all of that, how the hell do you think he's going to treat you? You know, you've got to think about it and you've got to prioritize and you've got to be thinking it in the long run in terms of the future. What kind of a father is he going to be? You know, if you're practicing Muslim girl, and I know practicing can mean different things to different people, but in general, if you're just trying your best in your deen and you want to be able to raise children who are going to also try their best in the deen, if you don't have your husband's support in that, it's going to be a very hard life. Now, it can be very difficult to know whether a man is practicing or not, and as well as practicing, he has to have the character as well. So this is where your parents' support and you doing, you know, further research on the guy is going to become very important, because he might be just telling you that he's going to the mosque, he's praying, blah blah blah, but you know, he might not be doing that. So you've got to do a lot of research, and of course that's where istihara comes in as well. The third man is, oh boy, is Mr. Player. Mr. Player, in the sense of a Muslim man, is the guy that uses the whole marriage, I will marry you line to whirl you into his world, but he never ever approaches any of your wali. The moment you mention coming to your mom or dad to introduce himself officially, he's not interested. This is he's / Mr. Wasteman, but Mr. Wasteman is coming later, okay girls? But Mr. Player is just trying to use you to fulfill his needs, whatever those needs are. And as young girls, you might be naive enough to think that, oh no, you know, this person really cares about me, he's not really like that, blah blah blah. Listen girls, I'll share something with you. This is why I always tell like young teenage girls who, you know, might come to me and say, oh, this guy has shown some interest in me. And even now at my age, this is what I do. If a man approaches me and he says, you know, are you looking to get into marriage or whatever, are you looking for a spouse, I would like to get to know you, I have a set of questions. I'm very blunt. At this stage of my life, there's no need for me to be wasting my time with no riffraff, right? And I'm very blunt. So I will say to them, listen, these are the sets of questions I have. Please answer those questions and I will have a look and see if there is a potential there, and also send me your picture. And then secondly, I will say after that, if I think it's a possibility, I will pass your information to my wali, who will then contact you and we will take it from there. The moment you mention wali again, you see them running, you see them being like, oh no, I'm not ready yet, or some of them you probably never ever hear from them again after that. So be very careful of these waste men out there that just trying to like, you know what, I'm gonna wife you, I'm gonna you know, they tell you all the sweet things you want to hear because they know that that's what you like. It's really sad, but I'm telling you girls, there are some men out there, some Muslim ones included as well, who know that the only way to get a Muslim girl is to talk about marriage, and so they use that as an excuse to try to lure you in. And remember that the way to spot them is that you have to be willing to give your wali, who is either your dad or your brother, anyone that's going to be able to stand for you in terms of marriage, they are your wali. And the moment you mention anyone like that and the brother doesn't seem interested, you need to cut him off and forget about him and move on with your life, because he is just a player and he ain't interested in no kind of marriage. He's just interested in trying to eventually use you for something else. So be careful girls, please. The next type of man to avoid is Mr. Obsessed. Mr. Obsessed in the beginning can seem very, you know, romantic. He calls you all the time, he showers you with gifts, and you know, it's just, oh my gosh, he's always thinking about me, he must be in love with me. But then 2 calls a day turns to 5 calls a day, turns to 10 calls a day, turns to emailing you, turns into Facebook messaging you and all other platforms stalking you. And he clearly has some mental health problems that he needs to deal with without you being part of his life. You are not his mother. You're not there to help him solve his issues. You need to let him go. You need to let him go and solve his issues, and maybe if he manages to fix them, then maybe you can think about it. But until then, you need to let him go. And there's a very fine line between the type of man that he's just being romantic versus the type of man that is very obsessive. And the reason why I'm specifically saying this to Muslim girls, because those type of men, the reason why I'm saying this for Muslim girls is because you know that wives should be submissive to their husbands. These are the type of men that take that way too far, to an extent where you can't even breathe unless you ask them for permission. Now, of course, that's an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. You literally have to ask for permission for every single thing. And they are, you know, those controlling, narcissistic type people. If you want to know what, you know, signs of a I can never say that word, but I'll leave it here. If you want to know what these type of people are, make sure you, after this video, YouTube it or Google it, and it will give you a list of type of characteristics of people who are narcissists, if I've said it right that time. So yeah, make sure you are very, very careful with Mr. Obsessive. Mr. Obsessive, it's like you become his world, you know, you become everything in his life, and you're all he thinks about. He just wants to be around you all the time. He gives you no space to breathe. You know, a gazillion phone calls a day, a gazillion emails a day, and if you don't respond, it's like, why haven't you responded to me? What were you doing? It's a million questions, right? This person doesn't give you any space to be yourself. They're just literally sucking the life out of you. Be very careful about Mr. Obsessed, because he is dangerous, okay? If he can be like that during the time that he's getting to know you in an Islamic way even, imagine what he will be like once he's married you and you're living that life 24/7 a day. The 5th guy that you want to avoid is Mr. Pressure. Mr. Pressure is the kind of guy who tries to convince you to compromise your deen, okay? He tries to push you into doing things you're not comfortable doing, right? As a Muslim girl, you know that certain things you're not supposed to do before marriage and all of that. But this kind of guy, whether it be fulfilling his desires or whatever, is pressuring you into wanting to do these things with him, right? And perhaps might even be threatening you that if you don't do these things, then he might go and get somebody else who's going to do it, and then you start feeling like, but what if I lose my man, and blah de blah. You want to stay away from this kind of person, okay? And you want to be really careful, because these type of men, they might have an ulterior motive. There's usually something behind the reason why they're trying to push you into doing something with them. So you can't always trust these type of people, because you never know what is behind, you know, their actions and their intentions, or the reason why they're trying to pressure you. And if any man is trying to pressurize you into doing anything, absolutely anything that you know you feel uncomfortable about, and that you know first and foremost that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be displeased with, you leave that man. Because a man that forces you into doing something that Allah is displeased with, he's not going to be the good man for you. And finally, I reached Mr. Waste Man, okay? Waste man is a terminology that's used for a man who adds no value to your life. And especially as a Muslim woman, you need a man, as I always say, that is going to support you and add value to your dunya, and also more importantly your hereafter. If you have a waste man who cannot add no value to you as a Muslim woman, as a worshipper of Allah, like he has nothing to offer in terms of supporting you in your deen, and he also cannot support you in your dunya, what is the point? Like literally, what is the point? You cannot be the one to carry all of the burden. In Islam, we know that women have rights upon their husbands, right? And again, it doesn't mean he should be able to give you the, you know, all the amazing things in the world, but at least he should be able to support you in both ways to the best of his abilities, right? So be careful, girls. I know that as women we can tend to be givers, and we can give so much of ourselves, and sometimes all we're doing is giving ourselves, and man's just sitting there taking it, do you know what I mean, and giving nothing back. You want a man who's going to be able to support you as well in terms of your deen and your hereafter. So please stay away from Mr. Waste Man, who would just literally take everything from you and give absolutely nothing back. So there you go, girls. Those are the 6 type of men that I think Muslim women should not marry, okay? And again, they are my opinions, and I would just like to conclude to say, you know, everyone goes through a rough patch in this time of their life, and we always have to be quite forgiving. You know, I'm sure there was a time in our lives when we couldn't have made good wives to another man, a good man out there, but you might have made a U-turn and changed and become a better person. So just keep that in mind, and know that everyone has, you know, their limitations. Yeah, nobody is perfect, and I'm not advising you girls out there to go out there and look for Mr. Perfect, because Mr. Perfect doesn't exist, okay? He doesn't exist, at least in this life. He doesn't. It might exist in Jannah, well, it definitely exists in Jannah, but it doesn't exist here. But in conclusion, just have your non-negotiables. You know, when you're making a list of, like, you know, the type of husband you might like or whatever, make sure you have a list, even if it's just in your head, of the kind of things that you will definitely not put up with, because that could be different for different people. For me, I can't have a husband who even smokes, because just having that habit for me it puts me off, right? But for maybe another sister, she might be able to put up with that. So it's different for all of us, but for me, I just think these are just extremes. So inshallah, I would advise that you don't marry men like that. But at the end of the day, girls, it is your decision, it is your choice, it is your marriage. This is just my opinions that I'm just sharing with you. It's just advice. If you disagree, if you're happily married to one of these men, and it's working, or you're finding ways of making it work for you, alhamdulillah. I'm not by any means trying to put that down. I know that everyone goes through difficulties in their lives, and I'm not trying to say that you should go out there and look for Mr. Perfect, because Mr. Perfect doesn't exist. But having said all that, please keep all of this in mind. And I know in one of my other marriage videos, people kept saying to me, well, how am I supposed to know all these qualities, find out all these qualities before marriage? It's all about the effort that you put in to study the man that you're going to get married, and, you know, do your own research about him. But most importantly, pray istikhara. Pray istikhara.